Welcome to The Color Timer. I am your host, Vincent Taylor. This is the podcast where we speak to professionals who work with color. I've got a quick test for you. You ready? Here's my list. I'm going to read these films out, see what they have in common. Suicide Squad, Skyfall, The Avengers, Matrix Revolutions, Air Force One, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Passing, Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, The Irishman, Bardo. I've got a bigger list, but I'm only reading part of it. What do they have in common? Matt Tomlinson. Matt is a color scientist based at Harbor in Los Angeles, and I'm going to be speaking to him about what the heck is a color scientist. We'll be using my 15-minute sand timer to keep things focused. Wish us luck because we both love to chat. Let's go.
Take your seats because the hourglass is about to turn. We are entering the world of the micro podcast. Explore the craft, creativity, and science of professionals who use color to tell stories. Welcome to The Color Timer with Vincent Taylor.
Matt, thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Great to be here.
Yeah, man. We're recording this on a Saturday morning for those of you who don't know. So Matt and I are both kind of, waking up. The kids were outside on the trampoline. I had to go, kids, go inside. I'm talking to Matt Tomlinson. They're looking at me going.
I'm in my Saturday morning attire. Just nice warm sweater.
Nice. Well, the rules of the game. I've got a little color timer here to start our conversation off. And I don't want to break the rules, so are you ready, sir?
As ready as I'm going to be.
Okay, all right, here we go. Turning over. Dum, dum, dum. All right, I've got a brief...
countdown in the bag, it's so nerve-wracking!
All right, now, you, sir, are a color scientist, and I am going to ask you the most asked question you get. What the heck is that?
Okay, so... there's actually, I've been thinking about that because I actually get that question a lot. And I realized I attacked this question from different angles. So if I am talking to someone in casual conversation that is, a friend of my dad's or someone like that who isn't in the entertainment industry, I realize they drone out very quickly. So I usually say something along the lines of, okay, so when you go see a movie in the movie theater, and then you see the same movie on, say, a streaming or on Blu-ray, you expect that movie to look the same in the theater and at home. But the reality is, those are two vastly different technologies. And if you were just to put one in the other, they would look completely wrong and broken. So what I do is I create the Rosetta Stone that allows it to look the same from the theater into the home and vice versa. So I do that mathematical translation with that. And sometimes that goes, oh, okay, I get that. If someone's in the entertainment industry, I might say something like, okay, so the first thing that color scientist does, from my perspective, is set up trust. So the idea is that if you're looking at something on a display, a projector, an iPad, or whatever, you see what you expect to see. It's not is this set up right? It's just you sit down, you look at it, and you go, that's my show, that's my movie. Yep, let's just be creative. And now let's make, not technical decisions, but artistic decisions. So, what is the definition of color science? Trust. I think that's really kind of what it boils down to. Now, that's kind of a base layer. The fun stuff is where I get to work with colorists like yourself and cinematographers and on their shows, and I help create what might be called the look of the show. I work with you and the DPs to kind of help in the beginning of the show, like, okay, what do you want your show to look like? And the cinematographer might say something, well, I'm influenced by Renoir. I like, but I really like the movie The Godfather, or I'm a big fan of Pete's Dragon from 1975, and you get to okay, I see where my job is to get inside their head and try to physically create something so that when we apply a color, brightness and hue and color onto an image, that it's that kind of image that they're starting to get in their head. And that's also helped by, they may present like what's called a lookbook, which is just like maybe images pulled off of like Google Images of other movies or just still photographs, and anything that they can point to and say, I like this on a picture. Can you make this color or this contrast? Can you make it so when I go shoot my movie, those inherent qualities are built into the look as a starting point? It just happens. So I help build those tools to present. And then, when the cinematographer goes off and does their hair and makeup test, they come in, they sit with you, the colorist. Sometimes I'll be there. A lot of times I'll be there, maybe a little bit in the background. And then, first thing first is the DP goes, oh, yes, this is kind of what I was envisioning in my head. Or no, this is not, which is actually equally as important. Because he can go, I like this part over here, but I don't like this part over here. And then we can start adjusting from there. Sometimes the colorist is making the adjustments. Sometimes I'm running away and building new kinds of tools and bringing them back to try out. But it becomes a very interactive, like jam session, if you will, at that point. It's almost like live jazz. I like to call it like it's digital jazz at that moment. And then finally, there's this inherent moment where the creative will go, wait, this is it. This is what I feel it. It's just a visceral thing where they're like, oh, yes, I like it. And that's when we lock down the look. And I create it, the transform, the LUT, that is provided to dailies and then VFX and then DI and finishing, So basically one of the things that I do is I'm a shepherd. So I shepherd the show along from the beginning all the way to the end, and I make sure that everybody's on course. Here's the roadmap. If we know where we are on the roadmap and somebody veers off on that roadmap, I know if we know where we are, we can bring them back in, and we can maintain the creative intent, if you will. It's helpful that my first 15 years of my career were in VFX, so I'm very apt at talking to the VFX group and making sure that they're taken care of. I know their language. I can talk with the dailies people. I can talk with the finishing people. So, kind of like I see myself as kind of an overseer of maintaining creative intent in that respect.
How did you, you say you come from a VFX background. How did you cross over into the role of a color scientist?
Well, I'd always been doing color science within VFX. So I started off back in like the mid 90s. My first job was at a place called Boss Film. They did Air Force One. What I did is I was part of the imaging science department, which was imaging science and color science are interchangeable a lot of times within this industry. And it's the first time, imaging science was just being born. I mean, this is before Jurassic Park. This is like, Time of the Crow and these kind of things where for VFX, it was just getting into the digital world, and the way it would work is you would scan in the negative, and then people would work on it, digitally VFX, and then it would get recorded back on to negative, and that negative would get cut into the actual ONEG of the show. It wasn't like now where it's just when you would film out an entire DI onto film. It was just you would film out the snippets and cut it into the ONEG. My job for the first like 7 years of my career was I was a color corrector, where I would actually color correct the background plates for VFX shots that were scanned in. And the way it would work is they would get scanned in. I would look at them on a display, and I would have a light box next to me. I'd just be looking at an eyepiece on a light box, looking at a screen back and forth. And the tools were like, really rudimentary, which really gave me a good, I was working with imagery, so I knew how to okay, this is how a curve works. This is what balances is. This is, in the shadows and the toes, this is how it affects things. This is when you shift things. These are it really gave me a feeling of how to attack an image just by looking at it, just by repetition. And the way you would check it is you you correct it on a screen, but then you'd have to film it back out to film and then look at film versus film. So you're doing a lot of mental gymnastics back in the day because, like, back then, like, I mean, it was the Wild West. Comparatively, like, what the knowledge base that I have now in comparison to then, it's like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
What would be, this is such a wide open question, but what would be a really tough part of your job? What would be a hard day for you?
A hard day for me actually would be where there's not enough bandwidth or time for me to give proper attention to everyone that deserves it.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, because, like, there will be times where multiple people will want to talk to me in almost the exact same moment, like those perfect storm moments. And I have to compartmentalize it a little bit. Like, I can give you what you exactly need right now, and I do that, and then I'll try to follow up with them. When in reality, what I want to do is I want to say, well, get real zen about the whole thing. Like, let's talk about it. What's going on? Tell me about it. Yeah. Like keep it very chill and relaxed, because I just find sometimes what people are asking for is not really what they're asking for, because it's hard sometimes to convey actual, what they're thinking in their head when it comes to visual, if that makes sense.
It does.
So that's why, like, I've always said, like, a color scientist, if I was a colorist, if I had a color scientist, that color scientist would be my best friend. Because I would always just, hey, can you help me? Can you make me faster, better? Can you put what's in my head out on the screen? Because like CJ, Julian, the other color scientist that I work with at Harbor, my partner in crime, if you will, he came up with this, I think, just wonderful analogy where, the colorist and the cinematographer, you guys are painters. Color scientists, we make paint. And we give, here's a new color of paint for you to try. And you're like, oh, I'm going to use this paint. And then you blend it in and you create the imagery that is art.
Yeah, that's a great way of explaining it, actually.
Yeah, we're the people at Home Depot with the big shaker cans.
I was thinking, because things are changing all the time with technology. All the time. Oh my gosh. How the heck do you keep up?
Dude, it's a full-time gig. And honestly, the people that I work with are very inquisitive and very, they want to know what's going on. And I'm very grateful that we have been able to set up an environment where sharing in knowledge is seen as a good thing. When somebody says, hey, something's wrong, I always try to start off with the concept that I messed up, that something I did was wrong. So I have to prove it out to myself that, okay, did I do something wrong? No, I didn't. So what's actually going on here? As opposed to like, well, what's wrong with, what are you talking about?
And being defensive.
And being defensive and putting up shields and guards. I'd much rather be the person who's like, oh, really? What's going on? Tell me. Show me. Like everybody who's expressing a moment of stress or a moment of concern or anything is, their expressions are valid because it's real. Perhaps the issue is concrete. Perhaps the issue is nebulous. Calmer heads prevail, I guess, if you can say in that way. Like, I try to, I was a big fan of Gil Grissom from the old show CSI. I actually used to have a calendar of like his little sayings, and one always just stuck with me, which is, and I use it all the time, where it's the moment you feel that you should go very, very fast is the exact moment you should go very, very slow. And I'll actually say, like, everyone, slow down.
Yeah,
let's just take it out, because then you can get to the root of the cause and get past the panic of it all.
I think your ability to calm a room is, you know what? I'm going to use the word legendary, because I work with you, and I just recently had that situation where the client noticed it actually, because there was some credits that should have been on black and the black wasn't black. And of course I'm looking at my monitor, so I wasn't noticing. And she went, that doesn't look right. And the great thing was, I called you, I just carried on. I called you. You came in. You not only fixed the problem in a split second, but then you reassured her. And not only that, you went on to explain a few things about what was going on, and which she delighted in. You know, you totally put her at ease. So that's
Nice.
that's a skill set.
That's if anything, I enjoy that part, to be honest. We're out of time.
I know. Isn't it cruel? It's
That's
cruel.
cruel.
I've got so many questions, but trust
Part
me,
two. Part two.
There's going to be a season 2. But I do tend to be a little bit naughty and throw in one more question.
Okay.
Break my own rules. And this one is a good one. People are, and I am not exaggerating, people are very fascinated by your job. All right, and you get asked questions all the time. What do you think is a question you would like somebody to ask you?
Oh God, it is hard. A question that I'd like someone to ask me
About your job,
about
not just
my
in life.
job. About exactly about the job.
Now you can push this off to season 2 if you want, and I can get you back on, and you can have a good think about it.
This is tough, man. How about this? Is there anything you'd like to purchase?
Matt, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Is there anything you would like to purchase?
A lot of gear.
That's a good answer to your question. Matt, look, thank you so much. And I'm serious, if you're up for it, if I end up doing a season 2, can you jump in?
100%.
Thank you, Matt Tomlinson. We will definitely be doing a part 2. There are so many more things I wanted to ask you. Thank you to my executive producer, MixingLight.com. If you're watching or listening to this on the Mixing Light website, you already know what they do. If you don't, check them out. They can help you, all things color. Thank you to my friend of the show, Filmlight, and to my producer, Kayla. Thanks for listening, and subscribe, do all that kind of stuff, because it does really help. Until next time, see ya.
The Color Timer, a micro podcast experience.